Hello, everyone. We wanted to take a moment to explain the current contract dispute from our perspective as counselors. To do that, we've put together an analogy that we really hope will help our faculty colleagues understand the heart of the issue.
We know there's a lot of information, and frankly, some misinformation going around about the conflict we're having with our union. Our only goal here is to explain our side of the story and bring some clarity to what is, admittedly, a pretty complex situation. So to make this easier to understand, we're going to use a hypothetical analogy that's based on a teaching contract. Now, it's really important to note this isn't a literal play-by-play of what happened. Think of it more as a tool to show the basic structure of the problem as we see it. Okay, let's get into it. So just for a minute, imagine you're a teaching faculty member at our college. We're going to start with a contract structure that probably feels very familiar to you. You're on a 175-day contract. This means your fall and spring semesters are required, but the winter intersession is totally optional. And the most important feature here, which we know you all value, is flexibility. You get to choose whether you work during the winter or not. Now, just to make this simple, let's use some easy, round numbers for this example. For your required work, the fall and spring semesters, let's say your base salary is $100,000. And if you choose to pick up a winter assignment, you can earn more money. Of course, we all know winter assignments aren't always guaranteed, and the pay can really vary depending on what it is. But for the sake of this example, let's just say it adds $15,000 to your income. Again, the key point is, it's your choice. Okay, now let's imagine a new scenario unfolds. The college realizes it has a new need, and that leads to a proposal that really starts to change things. So the college needs more instructors to teach in the winter. Their first offer is to make the winter session mandatory, but for the same total pay of $115,000. Well, naturally, the union pushes back. I mean, why would anyone give up their choice for no extra pay? So the union does its job and successfully negotiates an incentive, about a 4.2% raise, for any faculty who agree to give up that flexibility. So the new mandatory contract now pays $120,000. And as you can probably imagine, this creates two different groups of faculty. You've got Group A, who decides, nope, I'm keeping my flexibility, and they stay on that original contract. Then you have Group B, who accepts the new deal. They agree to a mandatory winter session in exchange for that higher pay that the union negotiated for them. Everything seems fine for a while, but then the next negotiation cycle comes around. And this is where the core of our problem today really begins, with an effort to equalize pay that actually unravels the very reason Group B took the deal in the first place. The union comes to the table and proposes a raise, but only for Group A. Their goal is to make Group A's daily pay rate equal to Group B's. But here's the thing, that completely wipes out the incentive Group B got for giving up their flexibility and agreeing to work more. Honestly, we could not have predicted that the very same union that negotiated that incentive for us would then turn around and work to take it away. Now hold on, because there's another really critical piece to this puzzle. It's called compression. Let's just quickly define what that means. A typical 175-day contract might be spread over two 17.5-week semesters. A compressed schedule means you work the exact same number of days, but you do it in a shorter amount of time, say two 16-week semesters, for the same annual salary. So you're working more intensely each week, but for fewer weeks overall. And this is where the new inequity becomes so clear. Imagine Group A gets a compressed schedule, but Group B does not. Now, if the union succeeds in equalizing their daily pay rate, just look at what happens. Group A works a total of 37 weeks a year, and that's if they choose to work winter. Group B is now required to work 40 weeks a year. So now, for the exact same daily pay, Group B is working 3 more weeks and has zero flexibility. You see, this stopped being about equal pay and started being about unequal working conditions. So by now, I'm sure you've figured out where we're going with this. This hypothetical story, well, it's our reality. We are Group B. We're the counselors who years ago agreed to a longer mandatory work year in exchange for an incentive that was negotiated for us. We accepted those added requirements in good faith. The union leadership, however, has been pushing a narrative that this is all just about pay. They have mischaracterized us publicly, calling us things like elitist, greedy, and divisive. They've told other faculty that we believe we deserve to be paid more than them. That narrative is just false. And frankly, it's been hurtful and incredibly misleading. For us, this has never been just about money. It's about the fundamental inequity of being required to work more weeks for the same daily rate. It's about losing our flexibility. And at its core, it's about whether we have fair representation at the negotiating table. And you should know, this analogy is actually a simplified version. There are even more complexities in our contracts, things like overload, service requirements, different pay formulas, that make the equity issues even bigger.
But once we understood what the union was intending to do, we didn't want to just be against something. We wanted to work with them to find a constructive way forward that could lead to real equity.
So we proposed what we think is a simple, fair question. If the goal is truly to equalize the daily pay rate, then shouldn't we also align the working conditions by giving counselors a compressed schedule? That would directly address the problem of us working more weeks for that same rate. Our solution doesn't take a dime from anyone else or change anyone else's contract. It would just bring our working conditions closer to being truly equitable.
Unfortunately, our efforts to collaborate were dismissed, and that left us with no other choice but to file what's called a PERB charge. And we really want to be clear about what this is and what it isn't. It is not a lawsuit against our union. We did not go out and hire a private attorney. A PERB charge is simply an administrative complaint. It was our only remaining path to get a formal review. What it does is allege that the union failed in its legal duty to fairly represent all of its members, which is a major concern for us.
So, after all of that, what do we hope our faculty colleagues take away from this? It really all boils down to just a few key principles. This is truly about equity in our working conditions. It's about being consulted when major changes that affect us are being proposed. And it's about having fair, knowledgeable representation for all faculty groups when our union sits down at the negotiating table. Ultimately, what this is all about is having a voice in our own working conditions. And at the end of the day, isn't that what a union is supposed to be for? Thank you so much for listening.